All right, guys. This is going to be our part two with Alicia Schoel. Somehow or another, my last recording ended up going live for a few minutes and caught me off guard. So we took a break for a second. And now we're back, baby. Right?
All the tech.
That's right. I am definitely not a tech junkie. I used to be the internet guru for my family, like computer guru, phone guru, everything. And I remember when I was trying to teach my mom to text on the flip phone that had you had to press ABC and
Yep,
EF, you
yes.
know? And now I look back on that and I'm like, I feel like my mom trying to learn to text when it
Yes.
comes to stuff like this.
Yes, I do not have the tech gene.
Right.
I do not.
Me either. Let's see. So where do I want to pick up at? Anthony, do you have any direct questions? No, Jed? No, Jed's
No.
out there. Okay, just double checking. So, all right, so we'll dive back into patient services. So you said there's going to be someone else already in the position, right?
I have heard they've hired someone else and they have hired an epidemiologist. So
Okay.
the goal is the goal was to actually make it a public health movement
Right.
and move forward with it. So I am optimistic in that small slice that, it needs to be built out. Other state agencies have researchers, they have
Scientists,
scientists,
doctors.
PhDs. I know one things that I was a little surprised with the advisory council is how small it is, and just the candidates that are on there. I'm used to. I come from a state where I'm probably throwing out a number, but 20 to 30 people. There's advocates, non-advocates, physicians, ER docs, PA, addiction counselors, growers, just a little bit more of a varied opinion. To me, that's what makes a more rounded advisory. You can't just take a few snippets of people to attempt to get what you want to get done.
Yeah. I think the main person that's on the EAC board right now that I see really trying to make some effective changes is Katie Nail.
Correct. Yep.
And I
I know
absolutely
Katie.
adore her.
Yep.
You know, she's been absolutely amazing. I think that she got, it's kind of not politically correct here, but I think it's called like the chair of the council.
Yep.
whatever
She,
that
I think, became
position is.
the chair, the co-chair of the council.
Yeah.
I know Katie. We graduated from the same program. In addition to just nurses seem to kind of find nurses. Katie has got her heart 100% in the right spot. She really does. Coming from the same angle as far as what can we do for patients, what's out there, what education do we need to have, testing, pesticides, what's in the product, what's not, what's been taken out of the product, and just really trying to advance that narrative for the public.
So, Patients for Safe Access, we've worked really hard to try to make effective changes, to better the medical marijuana product for the consumer, right? And Katie, she's one of those people that she wants to see that betterment too. You're one of those people wanting to see that betterment. You were met with resistance though, a little bit, and not seeing in a bad way, we're not dogging here, but just that where you were heading with things, where you saw the things that needed to be changed and improved on, wasn't necessarily what leadership wanted to focus on.
I just wasn't sure that we had the same agenda.
Yeah.
I think I'm not 25 anymore. And so the older I get, I'd rather work smarter, not harder. And so I think I just wasn't quite sure that I had the stamina for the long haul to kind of push rocks uphill. I had great allies, 100%. Like I mentioned, there are some absolutely fantastic people. I have had some really amazing colleagues in other departments that, were really in it to win it with me, to be honest. That really did help on a lot of the projects, and they really do want to make the agency function well and function for what the intent is, or at least what I feel the intent of a medical cannabis agency should be.
Right.
And there were some differences that I know I had said to colleagues, a medical cannabis program should have more than one medical person. Medical cannabis programs, even throughout dispensaries, this may or may not be a real popular comment. I understand that. But medical cannabis dispensaries should have access to medical services. I'm not saying they all have to spend six figures on a pharmacist or someone, but they need to have that. If you're going to say it, you need to do it. You know, if you're going to have a medical cannabis program, you need to have some sort of support for medical cannabis patients. And so those were some of the things. I don't know if that is necessarily even as a result of anyone at at the agency. I think that was just kind of how the program was instituted, and those were some things that I was like, well, then why don't we ask for those things? I come from a different background. I'm more of a results oriented person versus it's like, if I do something, I want a result, you know. I can be slightly patient, but I'm going to ask for it. You know, I'm okay to ask for something and be told no, but to just not ask at all.
Right. I think one of the big issues there that we've seen, so far is that we as an industry are not allowed to report what a benefit of medical cannabis is health-wise currently. So, example, if I take a specific strain, strong indica, say Skywalker OG or something like that, and I consume that strain at night because I have insomnia. Okay, the bud tender on duty might know that that's what's good for that, but they can't say, oh, this will help you sleep better.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And we need that to change as well, so that there can be medical benefits described, because medical marijuana does have medical benefits. Even the Department of Justice has put out statements, stating that medical cannabis has an accepted medical value.
Correct.
And so for that to happen, that was a huge thing in 2024. Thank you, Steph Scherer, Americans for Safe Access. We'll shout her out too here. We were just talking about y'all. And so, but that's a big deal. We need to get that change where we can give the benefits of.
I agree with giving the benefits of it 100%. My one drawback would be, and again, this is just the difference. My one drawback is that I think there have to be a lot of other things. Minnesota's doing this now too, where they didn't, in their medical dispensaries, they're allowing a certified medical cannabis consultant, that they're calling it. And so that person essentially is more like a bud tender that's taken a 30-hour, I think that's what it was proposed to be, like a 30-hour training class. Yeah. Now the problem is that my issue is that I have put in a lot more than 30 hours, and so I think there are, a lot of nuances that are in someone else's medical history that they, as a non-medical person or a non-licensed person, wouldn't even know to ask.
Right.
I think
things.
Correct. Yeah. Would they have gone so far as to know the interactions between blood thinners and certain cannabinoids, and what would you do about that?
Right.
Or do you do anything? Now that kind of falls down to previous comments that physicians should be better educated in the area, since there's such a large component and huge community of cannabis users, nationally, becoming internationally, it needs to be part of the training.
Yeah.
And those were some conversations that I was having even with some local universities, as far as like, okay, let's figure out, how do you get it into the nursing school in Tulsa? How do we start talking about it in certain facilities? So maybe that work doesn't necessarily have to be done on that level. Yeah. Maybe then it is more, I can only hope that maybe as things evolve with training physicians, even though with the new statute, it's a 3 to 5 hour course, at least then it's hopefully something to dig them down a rabbit hole. Like, oh, I didn't even think to ever ask about that or ever research about that. I better find that out before I educate these next patients. That would be an ideal world, right? That, they would just say, oh, hey, go get your Skywalker, and then you don't even have to deal with it at the person at the counter. It's like a farm tech, right? I mean, it's just, hey, I'm here, how are you? Like, this is
Right.
great.
I got my medicine.
Agreed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that to me would be more of an ideal world. Now, I don't know, I don't know that I will see that vision
Right.
in the next 10 years, but it would be fantastic.
I think that to go that far would definitely be met with resistance in Oklahoma, because
Yeah.
we are very, we love how loosely, we have our program currently. And even with all the like hyper regulations, stuff like
Yeah.
that, when you look at other states' programs and you look at our program, like we have access to every possible type of cannabis product that can ever be made.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all available, to every patient with a patient card.
Correct.
And so other states, example, Georgia
Mhm.
only has
Yeah.
access to medical cannabis oil.
Oil.
Only.
Correct.
There's other states that, have access to, say, oil and flour, but maybe not edibles.
Yeah.
Even. And so I feel fortunate that we have access to all the products that we have, but we just got to figure out how to keep them all safe.
Correct.
At the same time.
Right.
With this new person coming into the position, I guess my concerns and my worries would be, especially being as your views and hers align
Mhm.
similarly and stuff like that, as to whether or not, she'll have that endurance and stamina, like you used the word, to, wait out the leadership that's currently there to make change. Maybe even that's what needs to happen, because, when we get a new governor next year,
Right.
we'll have changes within that agency at that time.
So I have
Maybe
said
that's where.
I don't feel as though I left on bad terms.
Right.
I feel as though it just more was it's just not a direction that I can go right now. It's just not the stamina that I have. So I know that I have told both the incoming people that would have started or that will be starting and would have been on my team, and anyone that's still there, is I'm still here to advocate and advance the narrative. I don't care what state it's for, or if it's a particular agency or a particular person. If I have knowledge and can help align allies and help align people that it doesn't even mean that they think alike, but that they could even partner or collaborate to work together to advance the agenda in a more positive and educational light, I will do it.
Yeah.
I've already made those offers and statements, and those that are still within the agency, if I had anything to offer, they know how to get a hold of me.
It speaks volumes, it really does, because I have another person that had left the agency. When we talked to that individual about that, how they felt about the agency post leaving it and stuff like that, they were actually contacted, I guess, a couple days later, a week later, something like that, after their employment was terminated. And their employment was terminated, not a choosing to do anything, you know what I mean? And they were asked about some data that was on a computer. And they responded to the individual that called them, wanting to know how to retrieve that data. Well, you figure it out. It's your computer.
Yeah.
I'm not your ally anymore, type of a thing.
Yeah.
For you, on the other hand, are offering to still be an asset, to those that are incoming and those that have questions as
Right.
well.
I mean, I didn't feel as though I still was happy to whatever small little dents that I made. I still was happy with at least what was behind it.
Mhm.
I mean, my goals haven't changed. My goals don't really matter what, like I said, they don't matter what state I'm in, what position I hold. My goal is to still advance the position. Who needs to hear about it? Who needs to be educated about it? If I know someone or have a colleague in another state who's done a similar project, or if there's anything to be learned by anyone, I would rather get those people together in a room. So again, I kind of view myself as being one of those people.
Yeah.
Once I left, I've been working with Association of Cannabinoid Specialists for when I was a student, and then have now kind of accepted a board role there.
Nice.
To hopefully continue that work.
Yes.
Right, is to be able to continue to educate providers, bring those issues, kind of spread that word. Have nothing to do, full disclosure, had nothing to do with them being part of one of the choices on the program whatsoever. That was all graded, honest and truesies. I don't know if that was ever really put out there, but all of those people that were on there were graded at a very regulated process. Like there was a grid and everyone got a score. Nonetheless, so I won't stop that work, and I'll go back to Minnesota and continue that work no matter state I live in. If it happens to benefit people in Oklahoma, great. If it is another state or federally, great. It doesn't change who my employer is. So again, if I can have someone avoid making similar missteps or learning curves that I had, to get them more up to speed and to be able to do the work that I feel that role is intended for, is to be here on behalf of patients, then happy to do so.
Yeah, now I'm hoping that the person that takes the position after you is as receptive to patient communication as you have been, because that has been a really nice thing to have happen. As groups of advocates, I mean, Charles and I and Patients for Safe Access, like we've only been in this game about 2.5 years on the advocacy side of it, right? There's others that are long before us, Old School, Ronnie, all the others that came before us, Debbie, Nancy, all them, that put their boots to the ground and tried to make changes too. And eventually everyone kind of gets burnt out.
You get tired.
You get exhausted with it. And that's where we've been at for a while. And so you were a breath of fresh air in that picture. And I'm still like so heartbroken that you're not even going to be there now. Because now whenever I have to call,
I'm still here.
Be like,
I'm still here. You still have my number.
Yeah, but you can't log into the system.
I know, that I cannot do. No, that I cannot do.
So, but it'll be okay. We'll work out a new relationship with the person coming in, and I wish them the best of luck. I really do, because this agency seems like it's extremely difficult to accept changes for the good and for the right reasons. And I'm sure that there's reasoning behind everything.
Right.
But whether or not they understand the effects of what those reasons are and how they trickle down to the community, I do not think they have the foggiest concept grasped for that. I don't believe that they understand that when they hit that button at 5 on Friday, how many people it affects. Because, and I'm going to bring this up, and I haven't talked a lot about this, but there are business owners that when that happens that way, their mental health is affected so drastically immediately that I have people in my circle that are literally suicidal in the moment because they think that they've done something wrong, or they think that their license is in jeopardy, or whatever it is, type of a thing, because they hit that button Friday at 5 and there's no one to communicate with. And to me, that's that they've got to think about things like that, because if someone were to choose to act on that and it be a trigger point from you know what I mean,
like getting fired on a Friday, right, I know exactly. And I will be honest, that is probably not on that foresight, right? I mean, things like that, I think you're separated from the community in that regard, and don't know those pieces.
And it's not for a lack of the community trying, because oh my gosh, so many people have tried to build good relationships with OMA. And I've told Jed recently myself, I was like, I remember 2 years ago when we were just getting into the heat of everything, and people were like, oh, you're going to get frustrated, you're going to get burned out, you're not going to make any headway, you're going to, all this, that, and the other, and the third. And I was like, no, I can do it, right? And I'm sure every advocate,
you got to start out that way,
same,
you got to start out.
I'm different, type of a thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, reality hits you, and you realize that everything that you're trying to do to bring awareness to them isn't getting through at all.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating.
It's exhausting. I mean, it's exhausting.
I can see that.
She's
like, I was there.
Yeah, just in general. I mean, I know I have said it many times over the last few years, is it's like, cannabis is its own animal. And if you don't have people that don't understand the industry, it can be really stressful. And I think it is not regulated. People keep trying to regulate it like you would regulate alcohol or you would regulate tobacco or, no one claims alcohol has any medical benefits.
Right.
Claims tobacco has any medical benefits. You can't rule them the same. And with that same, iron fist, it is just kind of a fickle animal. I mean, it has to have its own narrative. And I think some of the drawbacks of a lot of state agencies, I wouldn't even just isolate it to OMA, but is that like I said, you need to have people that understand how the industry works. And if they don't, and I'm not saying that necessarily every single employee has worked in that industry at one point or another, but I do think that if one hasn't, then you need to do that due diligence to have those conversations, whatever that looks like. Maybe it be, kind of what I had intended that you and I had is, that was 100% one of my goals, is that you and I had kind of a conversation as far as like, let me talk to the community. That's who I want to hear from. That's who I want to know. I don't need to know, what goes on in the building. I want to know what people feel about the cannabis community here. Just what's necessary? What are those pain points? Because you can't hear about those pain points necessarily sitting in an office.
No, definitely not. I think one of the other questions, and I finally remembered what Jed's question was that, and maybe it was Anthony, but the question being that what is the perceived perception, I guess is how I'll try to phrase this, of Patients for Safe Access and ORCA and other advocacy groups from the OMA? Are we perceived as a benefit or a nuisance?
I don't know that it's one way or the other, to be honest. I think it kind of depends. I think it depends on the issue.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it depends on the issue. I know, like on the pesticide component, they're 100% were allies within the agency about expanding, pesticide testing and getting more on board with that.
Crazy what topics. I agree. Crazy what topics we can agree to.
Uh-huh.
Correct.
Yeah. I think if
that's what makes it incredible. Yeah. Especially with ORCA and Patients for Safe Access. You've got both, spectrums there. You've got the business.
Right.
And you've got the patients.
And
that's something that we play a role in, being members of both groups.
Right.
But people don't even have a clue is how to step from one to the other.
From one to the other, right? And so I think that it depends on what it is. Now, if you ask them, and I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone, possibly one that would be like, okay, if you're trying to advance it to adult use, you may find people thinking like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? What do we need that for? There's no qualifying conditions. It's easy enough to get a card. There's enough dispensaries. What do we need to go one step further for? So I don't know if that's necessarily perceived as an inhibitor. It just was kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with that. So I think it really depends on, I don't think it was never one way or the other. I think it's just a matter of, what is the issue and what are the common grounds. I think, however, though, if you don't necessarily take that time to understand what those common grounds are, like, maybe it's the 1 out of 10 things, right? Maybe if the 3 of us agreed.
That's what ours was. The barcode.
The
barcode. We came in with a handful of things and we got a barcode.
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's just it, right?
That's how it worked.
But that's the best way. I mean, that's what I look at it, right? Like, we maybe aren't going to agree on absolutely anything, but there's got to be something.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. So, I mean, that's kind of where I look at it, is that, even like an advisory committee or, the work that we could have done is, it's like, we may not agree on everything, but there's got to be something. There's got to be something that we can work on. Or if I can't, then maybe I know somebody that you could partner with to advance a different agenda, right? I mean, I just don't agree, and it's again, not even here, but I don't agree with the silos of populations. It's like everyone should be able to at least meet, to be able to discuss. So whether that be more frequent roundtables, or actually, I think personally, is to expand the advisory committee.
So they used to do roundtable meetings.
Yeah, I heard that.
They used to do lab roundtables. They used to do a veterans roundtable once a year in
Yeah.
November. They used to do roundtables with the business owners and things like that. And that has all stopped over the last 3 to 4 years. And I'm going to go here and swing a bat and say that when Travis Kirkpatrick was the OMMA director, was when there was probably more communication between like the agency and the industry as a whole, the community as a whole. And then since, Director Berry has taken that position, there has been less and less and less of it. And it's odd because, we've even brought that up to them in the past. Like we hosted our own Veterans Roundtable because Alma wasn't going to be.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, which was odd, like they're not going to, do their own, but they were willing to come down for ours and be panelists, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So you still have the time to do it.
Right.
But why didn't you do it?
Right.
And so that's been a frustration for the industry as a whole. And some of the OGs, that were here when 2018 happened, when 788 passed, who were some of the first through the gate, in this industry, they've already been to all the roundtables. They've already exhausted themselves.
Sure.
Speaking about it.
I can understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand.
So, but I would love to see them re-implement a lot of that. I think that the labs especially need to be on some type of a roundtable with them, because the labs are our first defense at protecting the patients by being honest, transparent, implementing some form of lab standardization, those types of things. Those are going to be critical going forward, and the QA lab is just a point of contention. You know what I mean? It's just a point of contention. I've been lied to so many times about that QA lab, I can't count. It's okay though. It's okay.
We'll get one day.
We'll get there one day. So, but yeah, the QA lab, I'd like to, see that up running, and it's not. And it was promised last year.
Sure.
And there's been somewhere around $10 million altogether applied in appropriations to that lab, and we still don't have it up and growing. And that's, I don't understand how. I don't understand how.
Yeah.
And so we need to get the labs on board. We need to get them all set up the same. We need to get on the same, page as to how they're testing, their methodologies, their SOPs, following the rules and regs, and not being a pay to play. Like, I know that there's other states that their labs, it's set up where they test it, they put out the result, and then I don't know if it's paid through the state for the test or if they pay for it, at the end or whatever. But it's set up basically to where they can't make you the numbers, they can't, pay to play. There's some type of software or something other system in place that doesn't let that happen. And we need to do that. We have way too many people that are testing THC numbers in the 32, 35%, and I don't know that I believe a whole lot of those numbers.
Right.
And the industry doesn't understand that that's actually technically like label fraud and product liability as well. When they're putting out products that the potency doesn't match, or it says it passed for pesticides and it didn't, or things like that, that's technically a label fraud. And we went through a process of getting a bond for our growers, right? But we don't have a bond for, say, a processor who puts out $5 million in product on the market. Okay, well, we've seen in the past where when that has happened, they just get a slap on the wrist and get to walk away and go play another day.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. There needs to be some type of recall insurance, some type of a bond, something other to cover the amount of products that you have produced that are sitting on the market.
And I think that's just difficult in cannabis in general, right? I mean, that's the whole issue, is that you cannot run it like a regular business. And that's, you expect people to function under the same quality standards, the same everything else as you would a regular insured, bonded corporation business, with like 4 times the regulation on top of that, 10 times the stigma on top of that. And then, it almost in certain markets always seems, how can we shut you down? Do we even really want you here? So how can we shut you down on top of that? And I think then when you have that kind of moving goalpost, then you don't really incorporate, like you said, this is the standard. You either meet the standard or you don't. I mean, your product either can make it to the market or it can't. Which I think look at the hemp stuff, right? I mean, that's been circulating. I mean, I have sniffed out that issue for a year thinking that was going to come to pass. And you probably have 50% plus of the people that are watching that on TV that have no idea what you're talking about. And they just think that you're banning weed.
Right.
So I mean, right. I mean, so again, you're even starting with so many different layers that are inaccurate to a corporation that really in certain areas, all you're doing is incentivizing people to lie.
A lot of misinformation.
I mean, and that's just the bummer of the industry, truthfully, because it's like then you add patients on top of that or in front of it, and then you're almost not, then you're 100% not doing any due diligence.
Well, do you have any socials or anything that you would like to share if people want to follow your story, where you're headed next?
I do not. No? I'm heading back to Minneapolis. Yes. I don't know. So no, I'm headed back to Minneapolis. However, someone did ask me the question that I was supposed to answer at the end.
My favorite question.
Yeah. Which is, what is my vision, or what are some things that I would kind of hope upon OMA or like to see them do? Yeah. I really wish that, they would continue with some of the things that we set up, or even just some of the things that I had posed, or even just ideas. And I don't think that for some in the agency, I don't think that they were unique ideas. It was more just, you need to provide education for those that want it on varying levels, and you need to provide accurate education, and you need to be able to be a resource for all that want it. Which means you need to be educated on all of those aspects. So bring in the people that know the industry, that can work with those in the industry, as well as you can have your, attorneys, accountants, tech people. That's cool. That's what kind of makes, businesses and agency run. However, I think foundationally, look at the purpose as to why the agency is there. And the agency is there based on that, in my pretense, it's a public health agency for patients that has added regulation and added duties that it has to do. So I would say continue to build on that narrative of, expanding research, expanding patient access to you, to the agency, have those communications, figure out who can you partner with in unique places, universities, community colleges, anywhere, coffee shop people, doesn't matter. But learn who your allies are on a much smaller level.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would agree with that. And, we were just talking about the EAC and about how like the members on that committee are, from a different pool than what we would have expected. People, right? Yeah. And so like the 2 people that are in there that are industry owners is Tara Sfalinkas and Randy Hendricks. And both of them are great guys, nothing negative to say in any way. But both of those guys are from a very large corporate marijuana background. Okay, you're talking Kind Love and you're talking Seed Cannabis. Those are some big companies in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure.
What we didn't see get on that board was the mom and pop. And the difference for me in that is that a larger corporate company can afford to hire people to do compliance and things like that, right?
Yes.
And keep their company running shipshape and on the up and up. When you've got mom and pops, they have to be every part of that company. And they're expected to know and understand and comprehend every single rule, regulation, change, everything. And so I think for me, I would have liked to have seen a mom and pop on that EAC board as well,
Mhm.
because the struggles that you have at Seed and at Kind are not the struggles that you have over here.
Right.
So,
I think it just, you build out a bigger board, or you build out bigger player. I mean,
There's plenty of chairs at the table.
100%.
There was
There's
plenty
lots
of
of
chairs
empty.
at the table.
And that is probably the perfect, the perfect statement. There's opportunity for everyone. If nothing else, whether people are consumers, non-consumers, what your interest is. I mean, really foundationally, what is it that we've all heard is cannabis is a community builder, right? It doesn't matter what your community is. If it's a community of consumers, business owners, it doesn't matter.
community builder.
But it is a community builder. So that is what I foundationally look in. It doesn't mean we have to agree on the exact same narrative, but it does mean that we should all be able to sit at a table and throw our 2 cents into the ring to be able to say constructively. I mean, it doesn't have to be a free for all just in general, but if I don't hear what you have to say, what am I going to act on? If I just sit in my office and think about what I think the community wants, and I maybe don't have any cannabis experience or any experience in that community, how then do I do my job effectively?
Absolutely.
And I guess that's kind of, more of my parting wishes for any agency that follows that template throughout the country.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because they all are. They're all staring right at us, and as you can tell.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time for sure. Thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was great to see.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Are we good?
No, we're good. Thanks for
I think
having
so
me.
too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
this has
Appreciate
been
you.
absolutely amazing. I can't wait for this to drop. It's going to be exciting. I think a lot of people in the industry are going to, see a little bit of humanity,
Yeah.
because like a lot of times we look at the agency and they're villainized in some ways.
But I think that's fair though, right? I mean, but if you don't see people
I'll be
attached
completely
to it-
honest. We've got phone calls from people who have literally said we need to keep our mouths shut and keep our stuff quiet. And I'm like, what are you guys even complaining about? All we're doing is trying to be transparent and have a conversation just like
Well,
you
we
guys
expect
did
them
today.
to.
That's it. I don't see that we did anything wrong. I don't see that we bashed any agencies. That's how I personally feel.
Yeah.
So like
I
you
mean-
said, I completely appreciate everything. you guys have done.
Absolutely.
Because like I said, these people are watching.
Yeah, I
That's how
just
we
think
learn.
honestly that is, I would rather be transparent than not. If I
Yep.
don't know, I'm going to tell you I don't know.
Yep.
And if someone in the room does know, then throw it at me. I think that's what I
One
prefer.
last question.
Yeah.
If you were still with the MMA currently, would you have been able to continue to do the podcast?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yep, that's how it works.
That's
Perfect.
okay, because I'm really glad that whenever you did it, that you reached out.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you, Alicia. It's been a pleasure. All right, guys, much love, one love, and I will catch you Sunday with Daniel Lewis to talk about the Cowboy Cup. So catch us then. Bye, guys.
Oh, yeah, that's